Well, Adam, it's the second bye week, and the Buffs are kind of wrapping things up. Media availability is done for this week, and Next up is Washington. But we had the last few days out here. Mel Tucker talked to us today about how it was a pretty productive bye week.
Yeah, this bye week, they always seem to come at great times. Especially some guys got banged up in the last game. They're trying to get Delrick Abrams Jr. And I think more than anything, just from a mental standpoint, they're going to have some responsibilities this weekend with strength and
Yeah.
conditioning, but they're going to have a second to kind of step back and just kind of refresh themselves. And they got a lot of developmental work in. A lot of the veteran guys were finished about 45 minutes before a couple of these practices ended, and they kept coaching it up. So it continues to be a constant theme, and it also now allows the coaches to get out on the road to recruit, because the December signing period is basically a month away. So you're really closing in on this 2020 class at this point.
Well, you really hope that this week helped a guy like Laviska Chenault maybe heal up a little bit. And he said after the game the other day, this is coming at a really good time for him. You hope he can make it through the last two games. And last time they had a bye week, though, they were 3-1, went to the bye, came out of it, and lost 5 in a row. So hopefully, they come out of this bye week a little bit better than they did last time.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Washington is not the Washington that they've been the past couple years, but still a really talented football team coming out here.
Yeah.
And Utah is playing at a high level. It's going to be interesting to watch that race. You look at Utah and Oregon, very probable that both those teams, with the schedule they have coming up here the next 3 weeks, could both go undefeated and go into that Pac-12 championship game with just one loss, which obviously for CU, if you're a CU fan, you want them, Utah to get that second loss. But for the conference, it would be good if both those teams could go into that game with one loss. And I think they might be able to sneak a team into the college football playoff.
Yeah, so you were talking about recruiting here a little bit. The coaches are going to go on the road. Mel Tucker says he's going to go on the road this week. It's been a lot of momentum in recruiting lately. There was Antonio Alfano last week. Then you have the two kids that committed earlier this week. 85 recruits that were at the last game. You obviously cover a lot of the recruiting. So give me your thoughts on just how recruiting's over the last 10 days has been.
Oh, it's been crazy. Now, not all 85 of those guys are legit CU caliber guys. You're going to have,
but it's still guys that are interested in the program that are here.
Right, and it's always good to build that goodwill with the local high schools. They might not have a recruit that's offerable right now, but who knows, 3-4 years down the line, you build good relationships with the coaching staff. But no, it's been really impressive. What I like about this staff is that on one hand, they're not scared to be the first program to offer a recruit. So they're not star chasing. They're not doing the copycat thing. Oh, well, this school offered, so now we should go in and offer.
Right.
So they're not scared to be the first, but they're also not scared to go head with some of these top programs. Ashad Clayton, a 4-star guy. Now, I know some of the offers, like Alabama and LSU that he had early on, some of those schools went in different directions, but still, you're looking at these offer lists of most of these kids, and it's lengthier power conference options on those lists, which is encouraging. So I think you just want to try to kind of keep this momentum going. It's always tough. On one hand, it's easier early on because you have the fresh start of a new coaching staff to sell.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's tough to win games when you're trying to rebuild. So if you can kind of transition from the excitement over to winning in the coming years, you can kind of really build that momentum with recruiting.
Have you been surprised by anything with this class? And I asked that because over the summer, we were kind of under the impression that they weren't going to really take a running back in this class, because they like the guys they have. They're all very young. Now they've got 2. So things like that. Does that surprise you?
A little bit. We golfed with Darian Hagan at Platy's tournament this summer, and at that point, it didn't look like they were going to take a running back. But what I think it says about this staff is it would be, on one hand, it would be easy to go, okay, we have Alex Fontenot and Jaron Mangum at running back. We're fine for the next 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. That's not the mentality you really want to have, though, because you don't know what's going to happen with injuries. If you have that mentality that we're going to keep trying to recruit the best players we can at each position, and you're going to put yourself into a situation where you actually have depth, which this program in most spots just has not had, and that's why they've been as bad as they've been the last 15 years, because there's going to be injuries during the season, and if there's a big drop-off in talent, you have issues. So I think that you build depth by recruiting, obviously, and so that's why they've had this mindset that they've had.
Well, and that mentality, I think, cost them a pretty good in-state kid last year, and Drake Nugent, that probably would have gone to Stanford anyway after he got that offer, but a guy that the previous staff said, hey, we're set at center. we're good. We got Colby Purcell for the next several years. Drake's not really a guard anyway, so we're not going to offer him. Drake's now a center guard at Stanford. So, that mentality, I agree with you that, hey, build some depth, and that's the biggest difference between, I think, this team and the elite teams in the conference is depth.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest thing they've been missing almost the whole time they've been in the Pac-12. And so I like it. I like the running backs they have, but, hey, if a guy like Ashad Clayton can come in and he's even better, and all of a sudden Alex Fontenot's your second best, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah. And the other thing is depth within classes. We've seen so much we saw a lot of attrition with Embry, and McIntyre's classes had actually pretty good depth in terms of guys that would be contributors, but they didn't have necessarily the top end star talent aside from a handful of guys like Laviska Shenault. So I think if Tucker can kind of get depth and top end talent, that's how you really start to compete in this conference.
Yeah. Another thing we kind of talked to Coach Tucker about is last week or so, we've seen guys like Davion Taylor, Steven Montez get invitations and accept invitations to postseason bowl games. Seems earlier than usual. I feel like I don't really see those till December, but these guys are starting to get those now. Kind of cool for those guys.
Yeah, no question. Steven Montez has obviously had an up and down career here. There's going to be a team that falls in love with his skill set and says, we're going to be able to make him into a consistent guy. He's going to get his shot. So it'll be fun to track that. I mean, no matter how his career here ends, I'm sure CU fans are going to, and us as well. He's always been great with the media. You want to root for him and see him really take those physical tools and blossom as a quarterback.
Yeah. One other thing real quick, because we see him over there, we ran into Jake Moretti today, and speaking of recruiting, one of the top recruits CU's had a number of years, obviously medically retired this year, and you and I had chances to chat with him briefly after practice, and he's doing great, down to, what do you say, 235 pounds. He says he hasn't been this skinny since a freshman in high school. Looks great, says he's feeling great, and just kind of, your thoughts as we talked to him today.
We even got to see pictures of a surgery. not pretty,
but
pretty. Your heart breaks for him from the football side of things because great young man, unbelievably talented football player. I mean, there's a reason Ohio State had him as a commit for a while, and he barely practiced, and yet when he did practice, he was arguably their most talented offensive tackle. He had the ability to be an NFL player, but his body just did not cooperate with him. It was great to see him today, big smile on his face, and he said they've been taking care of him here. He's got access to all the resources, still has training tables, so at least on just the personal life side of things, it's a good story. So it's good to see him doing well in life.
And always been just a super nice kid. I mean, he takes time to ask us how our families are doing, and not a lot of guys do that. Not putting anybody down, but it's just kind of one of those things that it didn't go unnoticed that he's asked about us. So wish obviously Jake Moretti well. We'll see if he comes back. I'm not sure he's going to come back in the future. It looks like he's pretty happy the way he is now. But anything else you want to wrap up for this week?
Well, speaking of surgeries on offensive linemen, I had a chance to talk to Colby Purcell and Coach Cap about it. Just a really strange thing, as Coach Cap said, in 27 years of coaching, there's always these firsts that come along. Coaching a guy who has his gallbladder removed mid-season. Here's a crazy tidbit for you. CU is undefeated when Colby Purcell makes an appearance in a game this year because he missed the Air Force game and then the 5 games during the losing streak. So obviously a little bit of a coincidence in there, but he's back out there and doing healthy. I mean, it was crazy. He was throwing up every morning for a while before they went to a specialist and figure out what the deal was. So when that happened, I asked Mel Tucker about it, and he didn't really give a lot of insight, but said it's the right thing for Colby, and obviously it was. I mean, he could have. There was a time there that he was going to try to power through. He played at Arizona State while he was having these issues, but it seemed like the right decision to just get this taken care of.
Well, I know Buff fans would love to see Colby play the next 2 games and keep that undefeated streak going.
I talked to Alex Kinney as well. He's got a couple interesting deals on his bio. He's 7-0 against CSU in Nebraska. He's the only player in the modern era that has won 5 games against one team. And he has now played in more games than any other CU Buff in history. He passed Quinn Subnewski last Saturday. So he's always going to have those things to tell his down the line he'll be able to tell his grandkids those two things.
At least for now, up till now, until that redshirt rule now allows guys to play those extra 4 games.
That's true.
We'll see how that changes. But one other quick thing, I talked to Bo Bishrat this week, a guy that was wrapping up his career, came in highly touted, 4-star guy. A lot of people look at him and say, well, he's been a bust. And but really, if you take that out of it, which that's not his fault that he was a 4-star. You look at his career; he's had a pretty good career. He's been a good special teams guy. Played running back, solidly as a backup. Now playing tight end, getting a lot of run there, and looking to potentially play in the NFL as one of those kind of grinder guys. So, I asked Bo if he ever has any regrets on any of that stuff. He goes, no, he's loving it, enjoying Coach Tucker, and is happy as he wraps up his career. So, one of those guys that I think that. I think fans maybe downplay a little bit what his impact is, because it wasn't what we thought it might be. He's had a pretty good impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his fault that he was so good in high school that people set these expectations, right? You said he's a good special teams player. I mean, he's been a great special teams player. Mm-hmm. To your point, if he comes in as a low 3-star guy, he's probably revered by this fan base for how well he's done in that regard, and he's had his moments here and there on offense. But no, it's been cool, and it's great to hear that he's had a good experience here, even though he's not the 1,000-yard rusher that some people maybe thought he would be coming in here.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week to talk about Washington and preview that game with Colby Purcell going for that undefeated streak again.